Well, the first review of 2024 is about to be in the books. Let's review Night Swim. Night Swim stars Wyatt Russell, Kerry Condon, and is directed by Bryce McGuire. What's up, guys? Welcome to the very first review. It's usually a horror review for 2024. It's January. Usually in January, if you had to guess, it's not going to be that good of a movie. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you end up getting something that's actually pretty decent. So is Night Swim decent? Let's talk about it.
There has to be some way to stop this.
Marco.
Elliot!
Wyatt Russell and Kerry Condon play Ray and Eve. There's this married couple, and they're wanting to get this new house. Ray, his backstory is he was this famous baseball player, and he has MS, so he has to quit baseball. So they get this house that has this pool, and it has a dark past. The opening of the movie, they show why it has that dark past. But it's a very basic plot, and you can pretty much rinse, repeat a lot of these supernatural, ghost-like stories that we get from Blumhouse and other studios. I mean, hell, if you get right down to it, Talk to Me deals with this type of stuff. It's just a brand of horror, okay? And I'm gonna admit, going into this, my expectations for this movie were at an all-time low. Just because it's January. But I do like the idea of horror set around like a swimming pool. Automatically, you're thinking of like Poltergeist. You know, one of the most famous scenes from that movie is when the mother, Jo Beth Williams, she gets in this pool and they had like real skulls in there. Now, let me just say, because my expectations were low, and this movie's not great by any means whatsoever, but it did surprise me because the first half of the movie is very cliche and honestly kind of slow. There's very little scares, I think, in, I don't want to say the first half, but at least like the first third of the movie. You know, and they're setting up this family. But it does have good pacing because once the story does start ramping up, the scares get more creative throughout and it gets more unpredictable. There are quite a few times in this movie I was surprised by the direction it went. And one might think that you're going to see like a lot of jump scares, and you do get jump scares in this movie, but they don't just depend on that. It leans more towards the actual story and explaining why this swimming pool has this sort of ghost-like past. And one big kudos I have to give this movie is your automatic thought is that why not just not go in that pool, okay? Just stay the hell out of that pool. If you got to sell the house down the line, that's fine, but at least we know, because there's been a couple of occurrences that have happened in that pool, okay, that's it, I'm done with the pool. But they figured out a way to keep the horror going even when they're outside of the pool. And one thing I will say is, you know, the father, Wyatt Russell, who, by the way, his daughter is like I'm guessing she's like 15 years old. He looks like he's 25. I don't know Wyatt Russell's age, but the father-daughter, but you know what? I'm like 21 years older than my daughter, so I guess I'll cut him some slack. But what I will say, keep in mind that he has MS in this movie. When he gets in that pool, it actually sort of heals him. So they write a good reason for him to want to stay in that pool. That's all I'll tell you, okay? Believe me, I haven't told you much at all. But I just needed to kind of, I guess, put you on the hook and lure you in, okay? Because I think this movie, it's worth your time for a January horror flick. It does have its problems, though. The cinematography is nothing to write home about, but if you got a good story in there and you got some good scares, then I'll cut you some slack with the cinematography. It doesn't look horrible or anything. It's still a Blumhouse studio-driven movie. You do have some fine performances in here, though. I especially liked Kerry Condon as the mother. She's the one who kind of has to take charge. This is all on her shoulders because everyone around her is being affected. And funny enough, she's one of the first to notice the danger. And this isn't one of those type movies where everybody's constantly like, don't worry about it. There's no danger in there. You're being superstitious. There's a little bit of that. I think it's more realistic because some of the stuff you're going to see in this swimming pool, it's hard to just push it aside and deny it. And in terms of the scares, I must say there was one jump scare in this that really was great and surprised me. I don't think it was like a CGI type deal either. And I love that when they get creative and they actually maybe put a little practical effects in there. I'm guessing it was practical. If it wasn't, then kudos to them as well because it looked real. But it was a nice little jump scare. But I like how this movie kept me guessing. It leaned more heavily on the story itself. Unfortunately, I do think this movie will be forgotten once you get to about the middle of 2024 because I got a feeling there's going to be some far better movies than this. But there's definitely going to be some worse movies as well. If I had to guess, by the time I get to the end of the year, this is going to be somewhere in the middle, okay? Which is pretty much its rating. I'm going to give it, I'll be generous, a high humdrum. Just because it did surprise me. And I did have a good time with the movie. Paced very well. It was over pretty quick, like an hour and 40 minutes. And it was a unique premise. Definitely give it that. So let me know your thoughts on Night Swim when you get a chance to see it. Like that name too, by the way. Also be sure to come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays we do Free for Fridays. Follow my Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.